You're listening to the Epically Geeky Show, a place for all things geeky.
Welcome out to the Epically Geeky Show, episode number 65. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight's opening question is, when it comes to con food, do you A, eat whatever's there, B, go out, try to find some time to go out and find something to eat, or C, do you just bring in snacks? Tonight is a little different because most of our normal cast isn't here. In fact, we've got some special guests. We're going to start off with Alex. Alex Carter. Of the three things, if it comes down to con food, are you eating what's there, are you trying to sneak out sometime, or are you just going to bring in snacks?
Well, I found myself at cons being a little bit too busy to try and sneak out, so it's kind of either eat whatever's there, or eat what food I've brought with me. So it's kind of a toss-up between those two. I don't like to wait an hour and a half in line at a con to get food, so especially if I'm working at a booth. So I tend to eat whatever food I brought with me, whether it be like trail mix or something like that. You generally something not probably the best for you.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
It never is. It never is. Also joining us tonight is Jillian Athey. When it comes to con food, are you eating what's there? Are you sneaking out? You bringing in snacks? What you got going on?
I do all the things. I always bring the instant ramen and like fruit snacks and Pop-Tarts. And we usually end up with a hotel room of way too much food. And then we usually go buy like either the Japanese snacks or like one of the conventions I always go to has like a bunch of food trucks that always comes. So we always end up hitting that at least once. And then we also always go out to eat at least once, usually in cosplay. So, that's always fun because all the people are always like, what? So it's really fun. It's a good time.
As the Ghostbuster community likes to refer to it, we like to go scare the straights. That's always fun.
In another group I play in the Society for Creative Anachronism, we like to call it Freaking the Mondays.
Nice.
Yeah, that's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Nice.
Normies.
Yeah.
The norms. Well, the reason why I have my two special guests on tonight is we've previously done an episode about cosplay, and while Lainey and I were at AggieCon, we actually had a booth next to Jillian and got to talking to her. She was in really awesome cosplay, and I was like, look, I'm not really not trying to be a creep or anything, but I can't help but look at your armor, and I'm just like, wow, that's awesome. We started talking about it, and I was like, you know what, this is awesome. I found another cosplayer that I can talk to, because I've wanted to do an episode talking about prop making and costume making, stuff like that, and she introduced me to Alex, and I was like, well, hey, let's get an episode together and talk about this. So that's what we're talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So with that said, let's just, like I said, I've got a couple of prepared questions, but we're just going to kind of see how the episode goes. But I'll just start off with this. How did you get into cosplay / prop making? And Alex, you can go ahead and start if you'd like.
I got into it on accident. It was completely by mistake. So I, about 2 years ago, I was putting together my first cosplay, which was a armored vault suit from Fallout.
Okay.
Because specifically Fallout 3 is what I was going for, but like my vault was Vault 13, which if you play like the original Fallout games from the computer games, Vault 13 is the vault that you're from in the very first Fallout, where you're the, I think you're just called the Vault Dweller or the Dweller. But so I was doing that, and I was buying a bunch of stuff. I pretty much bought all of my stuff from various people on Etsy, and I got it, and it was what I ordered, it's what I paid for, but it wasn't Fallout. so it was too newish. So I took a blowtorch to stuff and made it look all grimy and dirty and whatnot and bloody because, you get in lots of fights and Fallout. And I got really into it. And, I really, this is really cool. This is something I enjoy doing. And I got to wondering, well, what else can I make? And so I started making other stuff. And then, and then it just kind of, like I said earlier, just kind of snowballed out of control from there. And here I am 2 years later making stuff.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jillian, how did you get into cosplay?
So I got into cosplay because I went to a convention with my friends and was like, this is cool. I want to do this. And I've been into art since I was little, and so it was really not that big of a jump because I've always loved anime and Legend of Zelda and the nerdy things. My parents would be like, "Why don't you be a normal girl?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I like Thundercats." so anyway, I mean, it was fine. They love me. They're proud of me. But yeah, so it really wasn't. It was a natural progression, I think, of challenging my abilities and furthering my artistic skills because I've learned so many things from cosplay. I don't know, all sorts of different art things that I never would have dreamed I would have been able to do. So that's kind of how I got started. And then the first cosplay I ever made on my own was a Katarina and Talon from League of Legends. And I ended up competing in a contest because I was like, this is turning out much better than I actually ever anticipated. And I have the swords up there that I can show you guys if you want. But I ended up placing best novice or second place novice. I think it was second place novice. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I got, hooked and down the drain from there. So
right,
awesome.
Yeah.
It's something that's always kind of been in the back of my head. I've always been a bigger guy, and a couple years ago when my boys were born, I was like, all right, listen, I got to get the weight thing under control. So I started working out and lost a bunch of weight. I've put on some of the weight, but we're not going to talk about that. And I was like, I've always enjoyed Ghostbusters, and I was like, I went a couple years ago to a con, and I met the Austin area Ghostbusters there, and I was like, wow, this is legit. There's a group or whatever. And I was like, okay, I want to do this. So I don't know why I decided to go for a gold medal with a proton pack being the first build. Cause I'm like, I have a little electronics background. So I started doing research and everything else. I've always enjoyed working with my hands. And woodworking is interesting, but, number one, usually it you have to have a lot more space. You have to have a lot more power tools, and you also, the time, the energy, and everything. But I really wasn't sure how to incorporate my geeky side into it. And then as I'm building this proton pack, I was like, this is cool. You can make some cool stuff with really stuff that's inexpensive, foam and PVC and everything else. And I was like, this is great. I get to work in my hands, I get to express my geeky side. And, that's why I've and then I started doing YouTube searches, and the next thing I know, I'm like, wow, there's a whole community and a whole, there's a whole thing out there, and I'm so sucked into it now, and I love it. So,
right.
So how long have you been doing cosplay, Alex?
Go ahead, Jillian.
Okay, go ahead, Jillian.
I've been doing it since about maybe 2012.
Oh, okay.
About 3 or 4 years. Maybe 2013. I can't really remember. I think I started in 2012, but my first competition wasn't until 2013 because it was in the spring. So I kind of go by, okay, what year did I do this costume for a competition? So yeah. Grown exponentially in my skills since the first time because I can actually wear a costume multiple times rather than one day exploding all over the convention floor. It's not a good time. Growing pains, though. Everybody has to do it at least once, and then you learn from your mistakes. And
right.
It's good.
Well, like I said before, I've been doing this for 2 years. My first cosplay was a Fallout suit that I made for myself, but I haven't this year. As a matter of fact, at the end of last month was the first costume that I've made for myself since then.
Oh, okay.
So I've been doing this for 2 years, and I made a barbarian version of Samus that was designed by another cosplayer, and I saw her concept that she posted, because it was that she was something that she drew for herself, and I saw it. I followed her on social media, and I saw like I have to make that. So I contacted her, got her permission to make it, and made it for myself. And that was that. So the Barbarian Samus was the first costume that I've made for myself in over 2 years.
Wow, awesome.
I just spend my time making like stuff and making stuff for other people. So, but yeah, so I kind of more or less retired the Fallout cosplay because it was trash, and and I know I could do better. And I still have the vault suit. I might hang on to that because it still fits. 2 years later, and it's all right. So I might use that as a base still. Better than that, I've only been doing it for 2 years, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That actually leads right into my second question, my next question. So I mean, are you? Because I would definitely say I wouldn't even say I'm part-time at this. Like it's whatever time I can steal in the evenings when I'm not doing other projects, and then on weekends. Like it took me to build the first proton pack that I did. It took me 77 days, nights and weekends. And I'm talking about like an hour or two a night, and then whatever I can steal on the weekend. But you said you're building stuff for other people. So is this a part-time job? Is this a full-time job for you?
Well, it's a little bit of column A, a little column B.
Okay.
I have an Etsy store, and I do make and sell stuff through Etsy and through various commissions through like my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. But me and my fiance are having our son soon. She's actually due at the end of this month.
Oh, wow!
Congrats!
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. His name's going to be Link.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It's not short for Lincoln or anything like that. No, his name is legally going to be Link.
Gotcha.
Because my son's going to be the hero of time.
That's amazing.
Nice.
I love it.
Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna. I can't really necessarily do this full time anymore because it's like it's hard to find the clientele who's willing to pay the right price to make it worth my time. So. But no, I do commissions and sell through Etsy and stuff like that too. So it's kind of more like a part-time job.
Okay.
I wanted to take it to full time to be able to do it every day, but for right now it's just kind of like a part-time thing.
Gotcha. What about you, Jillian?
It's definitely a part-time thing for me. I'm actually a full-time veterinary student, so yeah, all my time is spent studying. And I like any time I get like 10-minute pockets here and there, I'm usually found either hand sewing a button on or, doing something like in class, and my classmates will be like, why do you have this? And I'm like, just don't worry about it. Keep walking. I hope to, after I graduate, I'm halfway done. So hopefully when I graduate, I'll have more time to dedicate to this. Right now, my goal is to just do one major costume or set of costumes a year, either for at least myself, if not for myself and at least one other person, just because group costumes always are more fun.
Yes. Yes, I understand that.
Yes. And so usually I will end up doing a few extra just for fun costumes that don't take too much time, like maybe a weekend or so to make. And I'll get an occasional weekend here and there. But for the most part, it's very much so a part-time job. But I don't really view it as a job for me. It's more of a stress-relieving hobby.
Gotcha.
And so having the difference of the stressful veterinary school work kind of environment to the I'm going to go paint something for 10 minutes. It's a nice contrast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no. I need to go do something else real quick.
Yeah.
Well, I got a 3D printer for Christmas, and it was a gift from my wife, my mom, and my dad. They knew I was like, I literally when I opened it up, I literally was like I broke down in tears. I'm like, you have no idea how much this is going to change my life. So like right now, I'm in the middle of I'm sitting here spinning the fidget spinners that are kind of a big thing. I'm in the process. I've been selling them. I mean, I'm selling them not too expensive, and they're my own design or whatever. But so like I'm actually doing a batarang right now.
Nice.
I like that.
But I'm selling them to people right now, and even though it was a gift, I don't, I feel like I should pay back the money that was spent on my 3D printer. Because I'm like, I don't want this hobby to take, a lot of money from my family or whatever. But,
right.
There's a little part of me that's like, could I make this into, a side job or something? Because it's not like I'm making money on the site. And we've joked about starting a Patreon, and there's some people on my site who are kind of back and forth on that. I'm just like, no, look, whatever. Anyway, refer back to a previous episode. Everyone in the chat room, I'm sure, can talk about that one. But no, I understand. Yeah, it's definitely a part time. It's for me, it's whenever I can kind of steal time away from. From all the other stuff, because I work a 9 to 5. Well, I say 9 to 5. It's technically 8 to 4, but I work a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Thank God. But then in the evenings I have my family, my wife, my boys, and I want to be there for them and everything else. And then it's like, okay, put them down. I need to get on the treadmill for a little bit, and then it's like, all right, well, I have like an hour and a half before bed. What am I working on tonight, or what am I researching tonight? So definitely understand that. So
right.
All right, so we talked about kind of. Okay. So when you got started into cosplay, what did you use as your primary resources? Like, where did you go to start researching this? Were you just like, well, I have some ideas, maybe I'll try it out, or did you immediately like start Googling stuff or go buy a book?
I just did a bunch of Google searches.
Mm-hmm.
I always do that. Usually if I have a new material or something I'm interested in working with, I'll just be like recently I've been looking into leatherworking, so I'll just Google leatherworking or like leather tooling, like how do I even go about doing this? And for the most part, I guess when I started, I used a lot of the like cosplay.com or whatever, because there's the forum on there has a lot of really good threads.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the RPG forum or whatever. I can't RPF. Yeah, there you go. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, there's just a lot of really good places online that I found, and it's always from a mishmash of places. There's not one place that I always go to. Like DeviantArt is another really good one, or even Pinterest sometimes has really, really good ideas that I never would have thought of.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is more just kind of once you kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like, then you can kind of go off of tutorials, but still kind of spin it your own way.
Right.
So.
In my case, when I was doing my Fallout stuff, I just kind of I came up with an idea. It's like, I wonder if I can do this to the thing, and so I would try to do the thing to the thing, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. I was like, okay, well, if it did work, then it worked out, and if it didn't work, I was like, okay, well, what else can I try? And then when I got more serious into like making stuff from scratch, I watched I'd do the usual stuff. I'd go to YouTube, watch like a tutorial here, and maybe read like a write up or something like that someone put on like Instructable, something like that. And I have bought both of Bill Duran's books, Foamsmith and Foamsmith 2. Which are great. Foamsmith was wonderfully informational. It was a great read, lots of tips and tricks that were in there, and it was great. But I've always kind of been like a kinesthetic learner.
Mm-hmm.
Means like I learn best by doing.
Right.
So it got to the point. It's like, okay, I've read enough. I just gotta do it.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing stuff. And using what I learned and read, and just kind of put stuff together. And if it didn't look right, or if it didn't work, then it's like, okay, well, let's try it again. And eventually, it just kind of started working. So I've always told people the best way to learn how to do this stuff is to, you can watch videos all day long, read books all you want, read write-ups all you want, but the best way to learn is to just start doing it. So
yeah, that's true.
Right.
100%.
especially and don't start like you don't want your first project to be like I'm gonna build Diva's mech. Like that's my first project. No, you don't.
That's a bad idea.
That is a bad idea. Yep.
Don't do that. You will regret it instantly. Start with something small. Like I'm gonna make a shoulder pauldron. That's my first project.
Mm-hmm.
So start small and always just kind of start doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I
agree
had
with
just
that.
started small. Like I said,
Hey,
but it was.
you just got a lot of experience. You leveled up like 5 levels rather than 1.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I just I just had to jump out there. I was that was a lot of grinding first off, but
Yeah, there you go.
So,
I mean, in some cases, it works out if you jump straight into the deep end of the pool. I mean, sometimes that works out, but it doesn't always work for everyone. Sometimes people like panic. Like whenever they start to realize there's a lot more to this than what there is on the surface. So. I always tell people to go for small projects first, but
yeah, I would definitely say that would be, hindsight being 50-50. I think one of the reasons it did take me longer, as long as it did for the Proton Pack, is because it took quite a few steps before I could start to see it. Like I could actually wow, this is actually going to be a thing. Whereas with a smaller project, say a gun or a blade or something like that. It should start taking form pretty quickly, and then you start getting that. I'm sure y'all have it. That motivation. You're like, wow, this is a thing. I'm making a thing, and you get motivated. You want to get it done. So I just thought of another question. Going back to the how you got into the cosplay thing. So when was the first time? When and how did you feel about the first time you suited up?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can't confirm. And I don't know. It was like just doing. It wasn't necessarily like putting on at the convention, but like the first test fit with everything on, like with holding the props. Like, wow, this feels right.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, for me, it's just. I mean, I'm so proud of what I've done. Like when it actually comes together and I can actually wear something I've made, I'm just like, look at me, I'm so cool. Like, I mean, that sounds pretty terrible, but I'm sure we all feel that because we're all like, I made this thing.
Right.
Like, I made this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, it blows my mind every time, and I don't want to sound conceited because I don't think I am conceited, but, I mean, maybe I am because I'm saying that. I don't know. But
I don't think so. No, because I completely understand.
Right.
I think everybody feels that the first time they put on a cosplay that they've made. So,
yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I start. It's like you were saying. Like the fabrication part of the process is fine and it's fun, but things start really getting exciting for me whenever I start painting, and that's when the painting is always the most fun. I think pretty much everyone will say painting is whenever the thing you're making starts to take life, and you're like, wow, this is like. Here it is, it's like this is the thing that I'm, and it's that. So like that transition from being an object, that you've made to being something that looks like something. It's a cathartic, I guess would be a good word for it. At least it is for me.
No, I
would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, the first time I remember, threw on the flight suit and threw on the pack and everything, I was like, okay. And then I literally was like, okay, I'm going to Austin Comic Con, and I'm like, this is gonna be a thing. And of course, if you've been to Austin Comic Con, you have to park, a little ways away usually. And I was like, all right, so I'm seriously going to be walking through downtown Austin just as a Ghostbuster.
Hey, it's fine.
And then I rounded a corner, and the first thing is like Ghostbuster, and they run up and they want to take pictures, and then it just kind of hit. I was like, wow, this is cool. Now it's like, do you need me to dress up? Like, can I dress up?
Yeah.
Like, I'm begging for situations where I can. Yeah, and I've had this conversation, especially with my sister-in-law and another friend of ours. Do you ever get that feeling like, and this may sound just totally weird, do you ever feel like whenever you put on a costume or one of your costumes, you're just like, this is me, like this is the real me, and the rest of the time is like me dealing with just like normal stuff, but like this is who I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, I can definitely say even though I've only ever made 2 costumes or had 2 costumes for myself, yet every time that I put it on, it just feels better than just wearing regular clothes. It's the same thing that happens whenever I put on like the garb that I used to wear for the Society for Creative Anachronism events that I would go to, where you put on like actual medieval clothing and like, wow, this, like, I feel more comfortable in these clothes. They're supposed to be like a costume, than I do in my normal everyday clothes, and it's definitely it feels better,
I think I'm gonna have to disagree, but that could be because my latest costume was Scarecrow from Batman Arkham Knight, which is a very scary man, and people kept confusing me for a man. They'd be like, "Excuse me, sir, can I take your picture?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay," like as girly as possible.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
I got a lot of weird looks, and it was great. We had a count going for how many times I was confused for a guy, because you can't tell in the costume.
No, it is an awesome costume. When we get around to the end of the episode where we start talking about our Instagram and Facebook and stuff accounts, if you're in the chat room, you'll definitely have to go check it out, because I've seen pictures of it. It's phenomenal. So
thank you.
Can confirm.
Yeah, but anyway, like when I wear my other costumes that are more like girly, I do feel that way. But I think it for me just kind of depends, because I'm very open in what I've done lions, cats. I've done men multiple times. Mm-hmm. I think it's just for me. It just depends.
Mm. Okay.
So.
Okay. Born Distracted in the chat room was asking, is makeup important as well in regards to cosplay? For me, no, because there's no real makeup to mine. But
right,
it depends.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It depends entirely on the character, and for some characters, makeup is necessary to really bring that character to life.
Darth Maul.
There's a slew of characters that, like, I was actually part of a panel where this came up at a con that I was at a booth at, and one of my fellow panelists was talking about how he did Solid Snake from Metal Gear, and that was his first time ever wearing makeup for a costume, and his girlfriend did it for him, and he took a before picture with like wearing the snake outfit, and then did an after picture wearing the snake outfit, and it's worlds apart. Like if in the before picture he looks like a guy just wearing like a bandana and kind of vaguely looking like Solid Snake, and then he had the after picture with the makeup, he looks like Solid Snake.
Right.
And so, like, it really depends on how much you want to bring the character to life, and even more so, what character you're going for. Because, like, if you want to be an Asari from Mass Effect, that's going to require makeup. You can't not wear it if you're, for doing that. So it depends on the character. And even if you, like, for special effects too, like with my Fallout cosplay, it was my first time ever wearing makeup, and I wore it was just kind of makeup to make myself look dirty, and like I'd been out in the field for 3 or 4 weeks, without a shower, so it kind of just depends,
Yeah, I would say that if you were doing a more like regular type cosplay where you don't have like crazy body paint, or like you're not that specific, I would say makeup always helps. It never can hurt, but I really do enjoy when cosplayers take the time to like Alex was saying, like look dirty and like put that grime and stuff on their face, especially if that's in line with what the character would be doing. I think it's a really great idea. But like he was saying, it really just depends on the character. Like if you're going for a cute kawaii girl, then probably you should, put on a bunch of cute kawaii makeup, maybe some falsies, I can't do falsies, so I can't help with that. But, I think you just really need to take a step back and look at the character you're interested in cosplaying. And if like see what you can do. Like, are they dirty? Are they cute? Do they need different colored eyebrows? Do they have like crazy lipstick? Do they have weird lines on their face like Naruto? Like, it just really depends. But I'm gonna stick with that. It never can hurt.
Okay.
Even for guys. Even for guys.
Yeah, even for guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's something. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, because someone actually just mentioned this is odd. The last time I actually suited up was for a friend of ours. They had a baby shower, and they didn't want it to be a traditional baby shower, so they wanted it to be a cosplay baby shower. So, you know, my sister-in-law both suited up, and, you know, I'm standing there eating baby shower food, and, you know, get something on the flight suit, and I'm like, oh, man, I've definitely got to wash it. And he's like, dude, man, you're supposed to be dirty. And I'm like, I know, but it's food, and it's, you know, it's one thing if I, like, you know, painted it on or did something to it, but I'm just like, it's also a flight suit. I don't know. It's... I'm kind of so, but no, I understand that going with that level of detail, you know, whether it be, you know, you're supposed to look, you know, to look the part, you know, isn't just the armor or the costume. It may also involve, you know, your skin and everything else. So,
right. And the bad thing is that there's like a stigma, especially in this country, about men wearing makeup, and how it's like somehow will emasculate you if you wear makeup, or, you know, you'll seem feminine. That's just. It's not the case at all. It's like it's kind of interesting because, like, in Korea, I just saw this. There's a whole line of makeup that just came out that's specifically developed for men and targets men, and it's selling like hotcakes. Like the makeup market is booming for men in South Korea, and so like and this kind of came up in that, and like I was saying in that panel that I was talking about too, about how the stigma around men wearing makeup. It's like all negative and stuff, but like this in the end, like Jillian said, it can only help. It'll never hurt the look, you know.
Gotcha.
That's really interesting you say that. I never even really considered that. Of course, I'm not a guy, so I, you know, why would I? But that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, like whenever I was doing my Fallout thing and she was putting the makeup on my face, I felt weird.
Yeah.
Because, like, not only because I'd never been, not because I, you know, necessarily because it was my first time wearing makeup, but because, like, just in the back of my mind, that whole time she was putting, I was like, wow, like, I shouldn't be wearing makeup. And, like, I realized, like, that I shouldn't even think that, because it's not necessarily anything that's wrong with it. You know, I'm still a guy. I'm still very much a heterosexual male. I don't feel somehow more attracted to men because I'm wearing makeup. Like, it's just one of those things that's it doesn't make sense. And now you know, seeing it, it's like, you're right, it can only ever help. It'll never hurt anything. So
just practice beforehand, because then it might hurt if you have like makeup smeared all over.
Yeah, because you know every Hollywood actor and newscaster doesn't wear makeup, you know. So
yeah, exactly.
Who do you look up to in the cosplay or prop building community?
I'm going to let you go first.
Well, the person that I really look up to whenever I was first beginning was Kamui Cosplay, the German cosplayer who makes all of the really great tutorials and books, and she's just amazing, and her corgis are adorable. If you don't follow her corgi's Instagram,
oh no, it's
a shameless plug.
Hilarious.
Super cute.
Yeah.
No, I would say that she was a really big inspiration for me. Another person that really inspired me was, her name is Britt the Badger. She's based in Seattle, and she does a lot of League of Legends cosplays, which is how I found her. And she has, like, all of the... I don't think she really does cosplay so much anymore, or else she's too busy, I'm not sure. But she's done, like, Janna and Sejuani and a bunch of the other champions from League, and they're just spot on. They're just, like... My mind is blown every time I see a picture of her in cosplay. And so she was really sweet. And I was able to message her a few times about, like, hey, how did you do this? And she was always really supportive and helpful. But beyond that, as I've gotten better with my techniques, I don't want to say that I've withdrawn from having, like, cosplay idols, because I still look up to a lot of people, but it's not quite so much of a starstruck level. It's more of a, wow, that's really awesome. I really appreciate what you did there.
Right.
So I don't really, I guess, have anybody current.
No, that's cool. That's cool. What about you?
No, I'm kind of like Jillian. Like, when I first started making stuff, like, one of the first people that I found was Bill Duran of Punish Props and Harrison Cricks of Vulpin Props. And, like, I followed their stuff, and they led me to Stephen Smith, who used to live locally here in Kansas City, but he's since moved to like around St. Louis, so he's still relatively local-ish. But those were the first three guys that I started following, and then led me to other people. And I really still love looking at the stuff that Bill makes and that Harrison makes and that Svetlana Kamui makes and just a slew of other people. But she's right. It's like once you start making stuff, it's not so much like starstruck where you're like, oh, I could never do that. That's so amazing. It's you start making stuff like, no, that's really cool looking. I have to do that now too. Mm-hmm. But no, definitely with like the I like I said, I own both of Bill's books, so I mean, there's definitely a level, and I've met and talked with Steven in person on several occasions. He's a wonderful guy. He was recently on Cosplay Melee. He had a whole experience with that. So those are probably the list of people that I would say that I look up to in the cosplay community is this already long and ever lengthening.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Just
look at my Instagram.
Right.
Like everybody I follow.
I'm following over 1,000 people on Instagram. So it's definitely it's not so much. I guess it's not so much of a idolization, but more of like an appreciation.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like an appreciation of fellow artists and crafters and what they do. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. I understand that. So which materials and tools do you prefer to work in?
Foam. EVA foam.
EVA
for
foam.
me all
Okay.
the time. Yeah. I only sew when I have to, and it's usually a lot, but foam is where my heart is.
And we had that conversation when I met you at AggieCon. Mm-hmm. It was I was able, I was able to look at like the armor pieces that you had made, and I can mentally wrap my brain around that. I'm like, okay,
Here, let me grab one.
Okay, I was like, I can look at that and I can kind of figure that out, and that makes sense to me. And then we brought up, for example, that's it. And then, like, for one example, I was talking about I met someone at Austin Comic-Con, and this lady had, that's awesome. Like, that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's all foam, so.
So, like I said, that's something I could kind of break down. But, like, when you were talking about the leatherworking or, and, the cases like sewing or whatever, I wouldn't know where to even begin. Like, the idea of building a Mandalorian costume to me seems much simpler than the idea of trying to build Jedi robes. Like, Jedi robes would be so far beyond my skill set, but like, oh, hey, a helmet, I could give that a shot. And
the thing is, though, I feel like with sewing, it's a lot easier to get once you've got it, and it's a lot easier to continue to make things, whereas for like props and armor and that sort of thing, I feel like you kind of have to almost start from square one again because it's a different armor design and you need a different structure, that sort of a thing. Whereas sewing, it's usually you're just making a giant pillowcase in some way, shape, or form.
Right, a pillowcase. It's a meat pillowcase, you might say.
Yeah, meat pillowcase. If we were naming the show by the old standards, that would be the name of our show. Meat pillowcase.
Badly explain something. Sewing.
Yeah. So
meat pillowcase. No, I definitely agree with Jillian. I cannot sew to save my life.
Of course.
Right. So to give you an understanding of that, for my Barbarian Samus cosplay that I just made, I had to make a cape and a loincloth. Extremely simple pieces of fabric, right? Mm-hmm. But I used some like maroon red linen, which is awesome fabric to work with, and I patterned it all out, and the loincloth and the cape are supposed to be lined with fur around some of the edges, and so I got my pieces out, cut out of the fabric and whatnot, and it's all hot glued together because I can't not sew to save my life. So, yeah, I know it hurts, right, Jillian?
It's not that bad.
I mean,
sucks, but it's not that bad.
But the hot glue was quicker, and it worked.
Okay, fair. Do you have a sewing machine? Because I'm sure a sewing machine would be quicker if you had one.
There are a couple of sewing machines sitting on a shelf over there.
You can
just off
see
camera.
them. They're sitting there.
Shame.
But I do not know how to work one. Because, like, me trying to work a sewing machine would be like a chimpanzee trying to do brain surgery. It wouldn't go over well.
It's not that bad.
Somehow something would explode. Like,
Okay.
that's what happened.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
That GIF you've probably seen of Homer Simpson where he's trying to learn to cook and he literally pours milk on the cereal and then it bursts into flames. That's what I'm picturing right now. So
No, I haven't, but that's pretty funny. But no, like, I prefer to do, this is a piece that I just finished before Planet Comic Con a couple weekends ago. This is the Razor Sword from Majora's Mask. It's my interpretation of the Razor Sword. So I work primarily with foam, but I also,
as he's getting up for the audio listeners.
Let me get my headphone back in. But I also work with monster clay to sculpt stuff.
Okay.
Right. So what will happen? Like, this is still very rough, and if you can't tell, it's going to be Casey Jones's mask from Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
So what will happen next is I'll mold this with silicone, and then make a urethane resin cast from the mold, and then I'll finish and paint that. So I also work with clay and various resins and stuff like that to make my stuff. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think as a cosplayer, we dabble in almost every kind of material, but I think we all have our favorites, is the moral of the story.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that. The proton pack over here to my right, the one that belongs to my sister-in-law Lainey, a lot of it is actually built out of. I found. I can't remember the guy's name. Grant Thompson, the King of Random, on YouTube, and he showed how to make a electric foam cutter, and I followed his instructions and I built one, and I thought I bet I could build a proton pack out of like that insulation foam. So that's what I built it out of, and it's holding up okay. It's basically that. There is like some PVC and stuff in it. But now that I've got this 3D printer, and I was really intending, I was like, man, now that I've learned more about EVA foam, I'd like to build one out of EVA foam. I think it would hold up well. It would be excellent for the crafting.
Yeah, definitely.
But before I got into that, like I said, I got sidetracked with the 3D printer, and now like that's kind of become my focus, mainly because. Going back to the whole time thing, it's like I could design something and then while I'm doing other stuff, my printer is actually working on it for me. Right. The other nice thing is, granted, it does take forever. I'm sure I could sculpt something by hand, cutting it out like, a billion times faster, but I could, I can instantly, reproduce it. Like, so, and one of the things, unfortunately, like, because a lot of the thing on these proton packs is custom, there's some parts that are breaking off, and I do want to talk about that in a second. I'm like, I need to repair some parts, and I'm like, I should 3D print it. And I was like, I wonder if I can find plans. And then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Yeah. I'm like, these are custom parts. Even if someone has standard parts, I'd still have to redo it. So, got to find time for that. So, which speaking of which, so being at cons and stuff, do you feel like it's almost a constant battle of fixing, repairing cosplay things? Because, like I said, with the proton packs, and I've talked to people who have like the higher end ones, and they're like, yeah, it always seems like there's a hose coming off, or there's something that's, there's something going on there. Do you find that to kind of be the case?
Well, and therein lies the snaggle with the stuff that we're making when it comes to the cosplay stuff, is because most of the stuff we're making isn't real. Like, it was never intended to be something that's real. Exactly. So whenever they design it for like the game or whatnot, the game designers
crazy.
aren't even right. The game designers aren't even literally thinking like, well, how would the person get in and out of this? That's not something that even enters their head because your character is never out of it, so you don't have and it never shows in game. So when part of the design process for this stuff is you have to figure out, okay, how can I physically take it on and off and still make it look cool? So whenever it comes and whenever you're talking about like hoses falling off and stuff like that, that's part of the process. It's like, I need this to be here, but it physically doesn't want to be in that position. Yes. So how can I make it do the thing? Yeah. And it's as long as you use the right adhesives for the job that you're doing, if you design it well enough, it's not really an issue. But sometimes you will come into things where like I said, this stuff was never really meant to be worn by an actual human being. So so sometimes just the act of you moving will make stuff rub, make stuff kind of bend and crease and fold and stuff like that. So sometimes you run into it, but generally if it's made well enough, it's not too big of an issue.
Yeah. I would definitely say that as I've gotten better at my costuming, my stuff has broken less at cons. But I'm always concerned about it, especially if it's fragile. Like for Scarecrow, like there's these tubes on his little arm that always like to pop out. And it's just because it's in a bad place. It's on the outside of my arm. When there's crowds going by, it always gets caught on things. But I mean, I just usually will bring like a hot glue gun or some of the E6000 glue and just have an emergency just in case. That and like some thread and needles and scissors. Other than that, like I said, as I've gotten better, it's been less of a problem. But just going back to what Alex was saying about having to think about how to get in and out of said costume. With Scarecrow, he has these like fingerless gloves that has the needle contraption on the top of his hand attached to that, which have tubes going on the outside of his arm along here. And so originally I had this one plan and I was like, wait, if I do this, I'm literally going to have to be sewn into this costume forever and like somehow break something. And so I was like, okay, I have to rethink this. This is not going to work. And I eventually figured it out. Just some tweaking, but yeah, it's definitely hard to make video game to reality.
Yeah.
Or anime or movie or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things, like I said, I'm wanting to do at least a third proton pack and try to get more movie accurate. I'm also wanting to try to do one that was from the video game that came out a little while ago, and they incorporated a bunch of other things. So, like, as they switch modes, and there have been people who've done it where the LEDs change colors, but like on the game, like there are these parts of it that kind of swing out, and I'm just like, that's not possible. Or if you do it, it's going to be so thin and so brittle that I know as soon as if I were to get it done, I would walk to a con and I think the biggest problem that as a Ghostbuster I run into is people want to take pictures. Love that. Love taking pictures, but you have to always tell them don't put your arm around me because you're gonna reach around and you're gonna break something off. So, yeah.
I always tell people if they run up like, oh my gosh, I love this character. Can I kill you? I'm like, or hug you, not kill you.
Can I kill you?
Whoa.
I'm like, yes, you can hug me, but it has to be gentle or an air hug or like, one of these really careful. And they're usually pretty good about that. And if somebody's running up to me, I'll like put my hands up like, no, stop. Like, slow down and then we'll talk.
So you're saying don't glomp you.
No glomping. Glomping is not ideal. You can fake glomp after. Scary.
All right. Permission required.
Yeah. Make that a cosplay. Just a sign. No glomping until permission.
Right. No glomping.
What materials or what materials, techniques, or something like that do you either hate or you're afraid of using? And I think we kind of covered that. I think at least I talked about, the idea of sewing stuff is just like, I'm like,
yeah,
if I can avoid that at all possible, but I know it's going to come up eventually. So,
well, for me, I've dabbled in just about, I think, everything that I can for cosplay at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I'm most apprehensive about is still electronics and soldering stuff. stuff. I just am awful at that. But I'm like so excited about this, and I know I shared it on my Instagram, so you guys might have already seen this. But I was so excited because I, bought these lights that actually change color or not change color, but they like pulse, and I don't know if you can really see that.
Oh yeah.
But I was just so happy that this actually like worked, because it never works for me, and I just was so happy. So for me, electronics, and I would love to be able to put sound or like smoke or like the little. I saw a Genji cosplay the other day from Overwatch, and he had the mask. I don't remember. I don't really play Overwatch, so I don't know if it was a skin or what he normally looks like. But he had this mask, and there was just like lights and smoke coming out of his eyes, and then he had like soundboard. No. It was a Genji. It was 100% a Genji. It was a skin though. It wasn't Reaper. I know who Reaper is. But he had like the a soundboard, so like it was motion activated or something. So like whenever anybody approached, it would like fire off a sound that he says. Like it was super cool.
No, my Barbarian Samus was my first time ever really incorporating lights into a thing and doing it myself. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is the owner of the makerspace that I work out of, Dave, is extremely experienced with electronics. And so I was kind of getting a little bit of guidance and help from him. And then I walked up to him one time when I needed to start putting some more lights in the costume. And it's like, all right. So he went and got the stuff and brought it over to me at the electronics bench that we have over here. He's like, "There's the stuff," and then walked away. It was, and he told me afterwards, he's like, "Yeah, no, it was kind of like a time to fly, baby bird," because he had kind of walked me through it a couple of times, and I understand what Jillian's saying about how it's scary, but after doing it a couple of times, because all the stuff that I had to do was custom wiring. Like there wasn't anything pre-made that I could do, so I had to, solder solder the wire to the contacts for the LED. Put all the insulation on, and then figure out how the wiring path and all that stuff, and where the battery pack is going to go. I had to do all of that for the first time for this costume by myself, and so it was an experience, and it was terrifying at first. But then once I figured out that it's not as scary as it seemed, because it's pretty simple. I say simple, but there's definitely a pattern to it. Yeah. And once you figure out that pattern, it's easy to follow. But when it comes to materials that I hate, there really isn't really any material that I hate. I haven't had the chance to work with thermoplastic yet, like Warbler or Senstra or anything like that. I haven't had the chance to do that yet just because it's expensive. I tend to stick with a little bit cheaper materials. I mean, the resin, like the urethane resins, like for the casting, is probably the most expensive stuff that I do. But eventually, I'll find an excuse to work with, Warbler or something like that eventually. So it'll probably happen.
I actually bought some Fibra a few months ago, and I still don't know how I feel about it. And one of the projects that I'm working on is going to require the transparent art Warbler, the Transpart. Mm-hmm. And I'm really worried about using it because I've never tested or played with it before, and I've heard it's much more finicky than regular Warbler. And I like Alex, I don't particularly like to use thermoplastics at this point just because it is so expensive, and I don't want to spend that much money on something that potentially could fail. I would much rather use a cheaper EVA foam, but for this particular thing I'm doing, it has to be clear. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, good luck with
challenges.
that.
Thank you.
And kind of to expand on a little bit, I was talking to Steven about it, and there are some people who like to make something out of foam and then wrap it with Warbler or like thermoplastic. And when someone asked Steven about doing that, he was like, "Oh no, I'm sure it works, but to me it's like taking a $20 bill and wrapping your foam with $20 bills." So it's like, no, that makes a lot of sense.
That's an image. Think twice before you buy the Warbler.
Yeah.
Right.
What is your favorite? We kind of talked about that, so I'm going to skip that one. What is the next project you're working on?
Well,
do I go?
Yeah, sure. For me, like personal project, or because I have a couple of commissions that I'm working on. I'm not really on under any sort of NDA
either
agreement.
Either or.
But for me personally, it's hard to come up with like what the next project is going to be because it's just an ever-growing list, and you have to decide, okay, what do I want to spend, the next 60 hours or more of my time making. For me, it's kind of what did I decide on? I think it's either going to be Death from Darksiders is going to be my next one, because I already sculpted and made his mask, so I already have the mask made up. I just need to make the outfit that I picked out. Or I recently played Rise, Son of Rome for the first time. I know, like throwback, right, to like the first days of Xbox One. I finally got an Xbox One like this last year for my birthday. And it was free on the Xbox Marketplace. So I was like, okay, well, I'll play it now.
Yeah.
But the game was beautiful. And so the main protagonist, the character you play as Marius, is the main character, and the armor that he wore is just so beautiful. Like it's not necessarily, it's accurate for the time period and for what they would have wore, but it's still very much like a game style kind of armor, like in the way how ornate it is. And I just like the look of it. So it's either kind of a toss up between doing Death or making Marius, like making a Marius cosplay. So
why not both?
Yeah.
What's that?
Why not both?
Mash up.
Right. That's actually kind of funny to say mashup, because at some point in the game, spoiler alert, I know, right? But at some point in the game, Marius goes on like his family is murdered by the Emperor on purpose, because like his father is too influential or something like that. Because like the Emperor at the time is Nero, so they were right crazy. But like he takes on the persona of this Roman, from like a legendary Roman general who was murdered, and he was brought back to life, and he became like the spirit of vengeance. I think his name was Damocles. So he takes on the persona of Damocles and fights in the gladiatorial pits as Damocles, and he's like has like this helmet that has like this face mask that's all death looking and stuff like that. It's like saying mashup is like, wow, that's kind of oddly accurate.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
What about you?
So my stuff that I'm working on, since I just finished Scarecrow, as in in the spring, so that's recent for me.
Right.
I am working on the beginnings of several different cosplays. I have the materials accumulated for a lot of them. One of them is for myself and my boyfriend. It's going to be a Link in Zelda. It's a fan art by Sean Donnan Art. So if you haven't looked at him, he's awesome. But it's basically like a samurai version. So
nice.
The pictures he drew of them are amazing. He has the trifecta of Ganondorf, Link, and Zelda. And I've tried to con a few of my friends into being Ganondorf. Not sure yet. Hopefully. But it's really cool because they have Zelda has the bow of light that is I don't know. It's just very beautiful and very, I feel like, culturally accurate. And I mean, I'm not Japanese and I don't really know that much about Japanese culture, but I know he's been to Japan and does a lot of research and spend a lot of time researching the female samurai warriors and the male samurai warriors, and it's beautiful. And then a few of the other things that I'm working on is the DC Bombshell Catwoman, because I'm a Catwoman and both of my cats have been around. You might have seen them. I have cat everything, so it's just a matter of time before I cosplay Catwoman.
Well, you've been a cat in costume before, so
I have 3 different cat cosplays, and I'm gonna redo one. Yeah, I have a problem.
No judgment here. No judgment here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I love it. That's when I feel at home whenever I'm a cat in cosplay. That's my true self.
Gotcha.
No, and then the other thing I'm working on is the Sunset Dragons fan art of Vaporeon and Flareon. Her D&D version. So it's a wizard Vaporeon and a barbarian Flareon. It's really cool. And I think for me that I like to do more obscure stuff. And so the fact that these characters are less obscure, but they have interesting spin on them that you wouldn't normally see. I think that's why I'm attracted to them, because everybody's done Flareon or Evolutions or Link or Zelda, so not that those are bad. I think they're great, and I still support anybody that wants to cosplay them. It's just for me personally, I get bored with it, and so I like to do something fresh and different and a little more like, oh, look at that Link and Zelda, that's interesting, I've never seen that before.
Right.
Yeah, talking about multiple projects, like literally I've got a proton pack behind me that needs repair. I'm currently 3D printing a Super Nintendo Mini that I created and have put out there, and I have my ghost trap that's literally 3D printed and is sitting like almost in arm's reach here, that needs to be sanded and painted and put together.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, I guess also because I'm part of a group, and the Austin Area Ghostbusters, I don't know. I kind of want to stay within that vein or whatever. And one of the people in the chat room brought up steampunk, and I was like, yeah, that's interesting, because I've seen a couple of steampunk Ghostbusters, and I'd love to do a take on that.
That would be really cool.
Ghostbusters would lend itself excellently to steampunk.
Yeah. Absolutely. Plus, I mean, the whole steampunk aesthetic, I love it. Like the idea of having this, in this case, it'd probably be, gold or bronze colored, pack on, and then like the suit and the top hat and it would just kind of
definitely.
Gears.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've also thought about doing, there's a video series that I follow on YouTube. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he's done a mashup. He's done mashup videos, a lot of Nintendo stuff with other pop culture stuff. So like he did a Super Buster Brothers, and it was Super Mario Brothers in the realm of. And I told my sister-in-law, I'm like he used the pack looked like a Super Nintendo, and the wand was basically a Super Scope 6. And I told my sister-in-law, I'm like, I'd like to do, one for you with the updated Ghostbusters, so that I'm not sure what console would be on the back, but then we would give you like Jillian's, sidearms would be, the old school zappers. So, it's just like, I don't know when I'll get time to that, but hopefully it's going to happen sometime.
Eventually.
So. Yeah, just need more time.
There's a never-ending list of cosplays to do.
Yeah,
literal. Yeah, see something, I have to make that. It's on the list. Yeah,
yeah, and then you're bringing up Legend of Zelda. Adafruit just put out a video earlier this week of a tutorial on. They made. I can't remember what the name of the sword is. It's one of the swords from the new Zelda, the Breath of the Wind, and
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild, and it's all 3D printed sword, and it like lights up, and the electronics are all of about $50, and I mean very minimal. So the electronics part I know I could do. The 3D printing, I'd have to chop it up a little bit more, and I'm just like, when am I going to have time to do this? And what am I going to do with it afterwards? Because it's not like I'm really going to cosplay as Link. But man, that sword would look awesome sitting up on, just to be like, that old thing.
Yeah, I have a weapons wall of all of the weapons that I've made for my cosplays. I don't have a fireplace, so that's kind of my little makeshift fireplace. But it's like right in my living room, so people will walk in and they'll see like I have a giant death scythe over there, and then like my weapons wall right here. They're like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
That's great.
Yeah, and I have the same thing in my apartment too. We actually have a fireplace in my apartment, so I have props sitting on the mantle over the fireplace, and it's like it's great.
It's very satisfying.
It is, and it's kind of funny bringing up Link because I like me personally since Fallout is kind of what gave birth to my interest and passion for cosplay and for making stuff. I tend to lean more towards like a post-apocalyptic style type theme for a lot of stuff, and I have it's in my head, but I don't have anything down to show people anything. But I want to do like a post-apocalyptic version of Link. And not even like post-apocalyptic in Hylian, but like a modern kind of like in our world looking post-apocalyptic version of Link.
Awesome.
Because I think it will, and it's like what Jillian is saying, like putting an interesting spin on characters that are common and whatnot. and whatnot. I've never seen anyone ever do like a post-apocalyptic version of Link.
Yeah.
They might do like a grimy kind of real world type look for him, but they never do like a modern kind of looking post-apocalyptic version.
Yeah.
And I since I got my razor sword already.
There you go.
Right. It's definitely something that I'm going to have to develop more, but it's a thought that I've had, and it's like, it's definitely something that's moved further up in the list, stuff to do.
Very cool.
The last question I actually had listed was, what is your dream / goal project? Like, what is your, this is the stretch. This is the big show. This is the big final. And if you need a second to think about it, that's fine.
I need a second.
Once again, kind of going back to the whole armor building, it would incorporate armor building. It would incorporate, I'm sure I would be doing some 3D printing. It'd be electronics. My handle, of course, as you saw, is Optimus Gene. I've always been a huge fan of Optimus Prime, and I would love to do a really, really badass looking Optimus Prime. Now, I know they've done, and there's two different ways of doing it. I mean, a lot of people kind of go where the costume looks more simplified, but it does the transformation. I'm not so much worried about that. I'm like, I want this thing to look legit, like the lights, so that I think would be phenomenal. And one of the big things that's kind of holding me back is, I was really looking into start working with EVA foam, and then kind of got sidetracked with the whole 3D printing thing. But the other question is, and I'll get to that in a second because that brings up another good question. So, does anyone have an answer they want to share?
Yeah, actually. I am a huge comic book fan. And collector, and I have lots of comics. And one of my favorite comic books series is Spawn. Because he's just a really iconic character, and he's like and he was McFarlane's kind of like, he's what McFarlane did other stuff before him, but Spawn is McFarlane's brainchild. It's his baby, it's his thing. They're approaching 300 now for issues and for Spawn, but there's a version of Spawn that I found. The medieval version of Spawn.
Yes.
And and I saw there's the comic book version of medieval Spawn, which is okay looking, but I found a statue.
I know which one you're talking about. That is phenomenal.
Yeah, right, and I plan on making that like a replica of that statue's armor and whatnot for a cosplay, because Spawn's one of my favorites. But just the level of detail for that armor, it's gonna take me at least I build stuff pretty quickly. At least I like to think I do. But I built my Barbarian Samus in 2 weeks. But that armor is probably gonna take me at least a solid 2, maybe even 3 months of dedicated work to get that done, especially to that level that I want to take it, because I feel like that could be my true masterwork, and that's what I want it to become. So, that's my next passion project. You might call it.
That's awesome. For me, I don't really know that I have anything that because I kind of have already done all the ones that I really wanted to do.
That's awesome.
I probably will. I mean, they're not good. I will admit to that.
Stop.
I mean, well, I know I could do better, so I'm sure I'll go back and remake a lot of the stuff I've already done, just because I wasn't happy with it, or I know I could do better. But I don't think there's really anything that I absolutely could die happy with at this point. I mean, Link and Zelda is probably the top, but I'm working on that now, so it's I don't know.
No, that's cool. But it's cool that you've actually started taking steps towards that. So
yeah.
So
I'm very happy. So
excellent. Born Distracted says, so basically like a Mad Max version of Link.
Oh yeah. I guess that's that's definitely a way of looking at it. Mad Max kind of Fallout theme, just whatever, just like a mashup of various wasteland type post-apocalyptic versions would be kind of the look that I'd be going for.
Awesome.
But somehow still I'm gonna have to find a balance between a modern look and his the medieval type kind of armored looking kind of thing. So it's gonna be a balancing act between those two. I know immediately that I don't want to incorporate any sort of like modern weaponry like firearm or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely want to keep it like the melee weapon kind of traditional weapon styles. But it's going to be an interesting how I develop it in my head because I also can't draw aside from sewing. So luckily enough, my fiance is an illustrationist, so I might be able to
nice.
con into drawing a concept for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's gonna. It's gonna be a pull from lots of resources, and Mad Max is definitely one of the ones that'll be kind of incorporated into it a little bit.
Very cool. The question I thought about is going back to, like I said, doing an Optimus Prime would be phenomenal. My question after that is, what do I do with it? Because my office here is already pretty crammed, and I'm just like, obviously you can't just, it's not like I can just throw it up in the attic in Texas heat. That's not going to work. But it's also not gonna sit well with the wife if it's like, oh hey, here's our guest room, here's the bed, here's the spare bathroom, there's Optimus Prime. It's oh hey, we have a photobomber. So how do you go about storing and displaying your costumes and stuff? I know, Jillian, you said you actually have above your mantle, you have like all of your weapons and stuff. What about the costumes themselves? Are they displayed? Are they in a closet or?
So most of my stuff is hung up in the closet, if possible. Scarecrow just lives right there because that's the only place that I trust him to be. He's only fallen off once, and then I made a better hanger. My Rengar just stays in a plastic bin that I can close, and I like it because my Vi and my Rengar both stay in plastic bins because I'm a student, so I move pretty frequently, and so I'd rather it be in a relatively structured thing that's not really going to bend or crush easily. But for the most part, but for the most part, like it's basically takes up about half my closet, and I have a kind of a small closet. So you definitely have to like find nooks and crannies, and I think that a lot of it has to come with knowing when it's time to let something go. Like my big death scythe that I have over there, when I made it, it was literally an inch away from hitting the ceiling in the place I was staying at, and because it was built for me, who I'm like 5'6" or something, and plus like 3 to 4 inch heels, plus it's supposed to be way over my head to begin with. Yeah. And so it just takes up a lot of space, and so I think I'm gonna have to throw it away before I, move.
Sell that thing.
I was gonna say sell it.
It was my first major prop. It's falling apart. I've only kept it for sentimental reasons. I would feel bad selling it because it would like fall apart on somebody. But yeah, it's really sucks because you just really have to find that balance. But I guess for Optimus Prime, I wonder if you could like get one of those storage garages or whatever, one of the air conditioned storage garages, and then like build it.
With those though.
You have? I've never used them.
We had one when my wife and we were building the house that we live in now. We stored stuff. We were living with my mom at the time, and even though it was supposed to be air conditioned and everything else, it flooded. And yeah, it's not like we lost a lot of stuff, but like she lost all of her yearbooks and stuff from high school.
Wow.
And yeah, so to me, it's always been kind of. I mean, it's a possibility. Like, literally, I could throw a rock from my house almost and hit one of those storage places. So, it's one of those things that's like, if worse come to worse, maybe, but... Yeah.
For me, I don't really necessarily have any, like, cosplays like what Jillian has. I have my Samus, but right now it's inside of a tote. Mm-hmm. Like a pretty decent sized tote. At least most of it is. Like I have my helmet on display, and I have the axe on display in my apartment because we have room. That's where most of my props live is at home. I have some stuff here at the space that we have open house here at the space, and so like I'll put some of my stuff out sometimes for Dave to talk about when everybody's giving a tour. Mm-hmm. So like I have storage space here, but I don't know. For my Samus, I kind of want to put it on display, like because I feel it doesn't take up a whole lot of room.
Right.
But I'm gonna have to definitely make like some sort of display armor stand for it. And through my experience in the SCA, I kind of already already know how to do that. So it's not terribly hard to do. It's just a matter of putting it together.
Right.
For something like this, though, since in the SCA you make them aesthetic, but for something like this, you can just make one out of PVC pipe and just kind of make it so it breaks down and is portable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing with the Optimus too, depending on how big it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you make like an actual like stilted version.
Oh no, I don't think I'd do a stilted version. I think I would do a little more towards my frame. So maybe a little extra height, maybe a little. So.
Right. No, for something like that, you could definitely make like a simple armor stand for it and just kind of tuck it away in a corner. As long as it's as long as you have a corner to.
Well, I could kill off the treadmill here. Could find a new home, but that kind of defeats the purpose. So,
I was gonna say I'm looking into getting a craft room, so I was gonna leave a lot of my stuff stored there in the meantime. But another thing is, one of the other exhibitors at AggieCon does a lot of movie replica stuff, and he was the one that had the giant. I don't remember what it's from. It was like a giant tank from RoboCop.
Yeah. Oh, 209. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can message him if you want and see what he does for storage for his stuff, because I know he works out of his garage and moves pretty frequently too. So I don't know if you would be interested. I can contact him.
Maybe eventually, like I said, that's probably a little further down on my to-do list, but it's something. It will happen someday. It's just when it's going to happen. So who knows? By that time, I may be in a different house and actually have room or whatever. So.
Well, there's a guy, the guy who does of extreme costumes, like the guy who did the art and whatnot, like the guy famous at New York Comic Con.
He did the Reinhardt recently from Overwatch. Right?
Oh yeah, that thing is phenomenal.
He was at Anime Matsuri. I saw it in person. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Amazing.
There's that guy, and there's Hoku Props who did a different version of Reinhardt. Kind of want to ask those guys what they do for storage, because where the hell do you put that? Like
exactly.
Do you have I think if in my head I think it probably definitely what Jillian is thinking, where it's like a dedicated storage unit where that stuff just kind of lives. Because surely they don't keep that in their house. Like
that's
no way.
Especially some of those things like that's a room. Like that's your entire spare room.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So. This is the bedroom, and this is where Reinhardt lives.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a fold-out bed. You have to kind of move around him though. So,
right.
Don't touch him.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much our show for the evening. I don't want to keep y'all too late, but thank you so much for joining us. The next section we go to is our picks and pans for the week, and this can be literally anything that you've enjoyed or are panning or whatever, to kind of give you an idea. So, like, my pick for the week is I just recently discovered, once again, going back to Instagram and seeing all the people that we follow, I followed Core Geek forever, and I've seen Jackie Craft show up from time to time, and he posted that, hey, we're doing a podcast, and I was like, okay, so let me check that out. And unless you are really into the cosplay, you're really into the prop building and the costume making, it's going to be so far over your head, you're just going to be like, I don't understand a damn word these people are saying. But for us three, though, like it's like candy. It was brain candy. I'm just listening going, I didn't think about that. That's awesome. And they actually just did an interview. One of their first interviews was with the Kamiya Cosplay. And actually, he teased the next episode, I think came out today. Anyway, maybe it's Monday. Is with Evil Ted. So
okay.
Yeah, they're doing some interviews, but then they're also talking about like their props, what they're making, how they're making it, and but yeah. So if you get a chance and you're looking for something else to listen to, and you're really into the prop making scene, check out Crafting Geek, and of course I just found it on iTunes, but that's an awesome. Like that's like my new brain candy right now. So, but Jackie, do you have a pick or pan for the week?
No, No,
I mean,
I don't
Jillian.
really.
I said Jackie, Jillian.
No, you're fine.
I was thinking Jackie from the show. Okay.
I saw Guardians of the Galaxy though. Too,
No
and it was
spoilers.
pretty
I
great.
haven't seen it yet.
No, I'm not spoiling. Not
Okay.
spoiling. It was good. I enjoyed it more than the first. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to try to see it Thursday, but I ended up babysitting the 3D printer for stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'll go Tuesday. So.
Yeah. For my peak of the week would definitely be the release of the trailer for the new Dark Tower movie.
Oh, okay. You and I can have some. You and I need to have a discussion.
Yeah. So the Dark Tower series is extremely important to me as an individual. So much so that I have 2 tattoos from the series on my chest. Specifically, the you probably know the Gunslinger's Litany. Mm-hmm. That prayer that Idris Elba is saying in the background of the trailer. I have that tattooed over my heart.
Nice.
Yeah, it's it's a really, really important book series to me, and Roland is one of my favorite literary characters of all time.
Okay. And
so like the trailer coming out and just the way they made the movie look, I can't wait. It needs to be out now.
Right.
I don't understand all the people who because I made the mistake of reading the comments section. On Facebook. I know. And people were complaining almost immediately of casting Idris Elba, a black man, to play Roland, who is in the book a white man, as being described as looking like Clint Eastwood.
Right.
And they're talking about he's black, he doesn't look like Clint Eastwood, he doesn't have blue eyes, because his Eddie in the series likes to call them bombardier eyes.
Yeah.
Talks about his blue eyes all the time. And I watched the trailer, I was like, what are you guys talking about? I mean, Idris Elba, he's Roland. There's no argument. I don't understand what legs you're standing on. I don't get it. But that's my pick. I am so excited for that movie. I can't even begin to describe it.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, if you would please, hope you enjoyed the show. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or Google Music, wherever you might listen to the show. We do record the show live on YouTube on Saturday nights at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time or Central Daylight Time, whatever. God, I hate having to say that. Anyway, also check out some of our other shows, the Marginally Geeky Book Club. We're in the process of reading 1984. We'll be recording that at the end of the month. And then I should have a new episode of Epically Geeky Makers coming out this week. Cyrus wasn't on this episode. Him and Picky Old Gamer should have an episode of Game Rambling live tomorrow night, so if you want to, join them for that. And then, of course, you can find the show at Epically Geeky on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and, of course, at epicallygeeky.com. Where can we find you on the internet, Jillian?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Jams Cosplay. I also have a Patreon. It's mainly for if you really, really want to support me, but I really don't like to advocate for it because I'd only if you really like what I do, basically. So. Okay.
Yeah, definitely check out her Instagram account. I met her at AggieCon, started following her, and I'm like, wow, and I like the fact that you also post stuff that you're working on. That's one of the things that I followed a couple of cosplayers here and there, and over time it's like, okay, it's awesome to see you in the costume, but I want to see what is it you're working on, or even if you're not necessarily describing it, I just I kind of like to see that background stuff, and I appreciate that you put that out there. So
thank you.
So for you can find me on the interwebs, Facebook and Instagram, under Red Pill Props in Cosplay.
Okay.
And if you're wondering, yes, it is entirely a Matrix reference. And much like Jillian, I post pretty much photos of everything that I'm doing. So and I've toyed around the idea of putting on a Patreon, but it might happen, it might not, but it's like she said, it's kind of only for the super dedicated fans and followers. So so it might not even happen. So
I mean, for what it's worth, I don't know that I would do it again. I think it's a great idea, but I'm not convinced still. I spent a long time thinking about if I wanted it, and then waffled, and I'm still not convinced.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.